Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on this magnificent Monday for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. And as always, if you are new to this channel and finding yourself on my videos for the first time today, don't forget to check out that subscribe button because I drop an update just like this one around 1 p.m. UK time every single day to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And that's exactly what we intend to do in this video. We're going to be starting the video off with a clip looking at the historic relationship between Bitcoin's price and the halving, showing you what Bitcoin does a month after the halving, 3 months after the halving, to 6 months, 18 months out. And there's a lot of things that converge that help us paint a bullish picture and also understand that the bulk of the bull market is still to come. We're yet to even see Bitcoin dominance roll. We will be talking about that towards the end of the video, where we're going to be bringing up Roaring Kitty, the infamous Roaring Kitty, GameStop, Dogecoin, and using meme stocks as a representative of the environment that we're now in, just like we've used Stan Druckenmiller as a kind of green light in regards to a good environment for risk, as he moved from your big Mag 7 Nvidia down to the Russell 2000 IWM, which is kind of a vote of confidence, I guess, that risk is going to do very well. You don't move in a environment where risk isn't going to do well from a big, safer, arguably kind of unicorn-esque stock down to a basket of small interest rate sensitive stocks. So we've got quite a lot to get into. We're also going to be looking at Robert F. Kennedy, talking about how he believes we can solve some of the debt problem within the United States through embracing blockchain. The US arguably needs to embrace blockchain more than anybody. Tonight, we're actually releasing a video on Ripple in regards to my thoughts that Ripple actually might become a bit of a unicorn stock, just like Facebook, Google, Apple, and actually the US are likely going to use them to further their global agenda and power. So a lot to get into. As always, without further ado, let's start the video off with a clip talking about the historic correlation between Bitcoin's price and the halvings, what it kind of does. After, we'll also dive over to the Brave New Liquid Coin Index to show you this visually on a chart, because charts are kings for me. And then we'll get into everything else that we want to cover in this video. So let's go ahead and play the clip.
Here's a little Bitcoin price analysis for you guys. So there's been a couple of halving cycles that have happened. And I asked him to go back and look at the price performance 1 month after a halving, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and 18 months after a halving. And what you notice is that there are these moments initially where essentially when you go through a Bitcoin halving, people are sort of reassessing what's happening and they're trying to figure it out. That's sort of what I would say happens in the first month, and roughly what also happens in the first 3 months. But then within 6 months to a year and 18 months of these things, there are these crazy price appreciation cycles that happen. So that's what this page shows, which is, 18 months after the first halving, the Bitcoin price returned 45x. After the second halving, it returned almost 28x. And after this third halving, it returned almost an 8x, which is really incredible returns in such a short period of time. If you go to the next page. And so if you graph that, this is what it starts to show, which is what is this price performance after each of these halving cycles. Now, why is that interesting? Well, it's interesting because on top of this halving, which theoretically, if history is a guide, we should see some price appreciation. Obviously, the other thing that's happened is we've commercialized Bitcoin. And we talked about this sort of as my big prediction for 2024, which is these ETFs are really going to allow Bitcoin to cross the chasm and have its sort of central key moment, right? And so if you apply the averages, and again, these are just averages, they're by no means predictions. Okay, so I just want to qualify that.
Yeah,
this
is not financial advice.
It's not financial advice. These are just guesses. Data. We took these and we applied it to the price of Bitcoin. And if you go to the next page, you start to see what could happen if you just take the average of the last few cycles. So because the first cycle was so extreme, and you start to
so you're just doing cycle 2 and 3 here, to be clear.
Just the averages of cycle 2 and 3. And what you start to see is some really meaningful appreciation. And when I talked to Wences about this, how he explained it, which makes a lot of sense to me, is there are a lot of countries that will never look at Bitcoin credibly, even if they support it. The US may be one of those, but there's an increasing body of countries that will become dual currency. And they will look at their local currency, and then they will look at Bitcoin. And they will say both of these two things are needed. One, when you're transacting on a daily basis for random goods and services. And two, when you need to buy a permanent asset that needs to have residual value, you'll use something like BTC. And I think that's a very powerful concept. And if you look at what this price chart could indicate, is that if this thing starts to get to these levels of appreciation, it is going to completely replace gold and start to become something that has transactional utility for hard assets. And I think if you marry that with this worry that some folks have about dollar debasement, you start to see some really interesting opportunities.
So I only wanted to play a short clip. I think that was from the ALLIN podcast. We have no association with it, by the way, just obviously see the greatness of the name. But really what is being shown there is the fact that Bitcoin actually lags in regards to the halving. So after the halving, a month to 3 months after it, there's a period of kind of, in the terms used there, figuring out what's happening. And if we dive over to the Brave New Liquid Coin Index, you can actually see that this is very much the case. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because people get very impatient in regards to, yes, we've been going sideways for a period now of about 3 months as Bitcoin sort of reached its all-time highs. It's then sort of consolidated. And actually, this is very normal and very in line with traditional halving cycles. And as we're following the halving so beautifully, remember this was the first time that we actually put in a new high pre-halving. As we're following the halving cycle so beautifully, it's very much expected to continue to be the case. And of course, the halving cycle lines up with global liquidity, it lines up with PMI, manufacturing indexes. You know, there's this beautiful kind of fundamental, also coupled with technical narrative that is taking place. And if we look at the Brave New Liquid Coin Index, you can see that usually the bull market goes on for about 46-ish days, 500 days or so. You know, in that clip, they spoke about 18 months after the halving, 6 months after the halving, the kinds of returns that you should expect. And I think this time is going to be no different. In fact, probably larger than the prior one in regards to Bitcoin's performance due to the institutional adoption and kind of acceptance of this asset class. We're still on that journey of having altcoin ETFs. It's here, ladies and gents. We're seeing Ethereum. There are going to be more. There's going to be baskets. Yesterday, we looked at 3 different index funds that track the large cap cryptocurrencies top 10. If it's Bitwise, it's BITW, whatever it may be. But there's an unbelievably bullish picture being painted. We have that higher target for Bitcoin. And we're very much following what's came before us, the 4-year cycle and the kind of theory behind that. So there's a very bullish picture being painted. It's one that you don't bet against until there's reason to do so. And ultimately, we've got this real fundamental backdrop in regards to the macroeconomic situation that aligns perfectly with everything. Just to show you Bitcoin very quickly, of course, this is our sort of price action or price expectations in regards to what's happening. We do, and I did cover this on my Patreons, don't forget to check that out, ladies and gentlemen, have some potential smaller structure that's setting up that might want to see Bitcoin run all the way to $91,000, nearly $100,000. So we are well on our way to our sort of larger target of 151,000. Things are going swimmingly. I know people are frustrated with the sort of price action, but this is the game of investing, ladies and gentlemen. It's called investing. You invest in something over a period of time in the expectations to make returns. And I think people get very impatient when they don't happen overnight. Just something really quickly to sort of highlight. This is what's happening over in China in regards to them dumping US debt, because the game is very much up from that point of view. People are going, why are we holding US debt when we can hold assets that don't inflate to the same degree, which is really the Bitcoin trade. Remember, the Nikkei is a short yen trade, the S&P is a short dollar trade, Bitcoin is a short dollar trade, and actually going into gold. Now, gold is going to outperform, or Bitcoin's going to outperform gold. You know, we've looked at that technically. I want to now dive into a clip before we start to talk about meme stocks and meme coins and what perhaps that represents in regards to the environment that we're in and the green light that it gives risk. I want to actually dive into a clip now of Robert F. Kennedy talking about the colossal debt burden that the US currently has and the fact that blockchain can help alleviate this and that the US really need this kind of innovation, probably more so than anybody with the amount of debt that they've got. We will do a video looking at the fact that Europe is actually set to cut rates on Thursday. Again, it kind of ties into this formula and this kind of vision that we have of the environment that we're in. We'll talk about that a little bit in just a second when we look at meme stocks. But let's now dive into this clip of RFK talking about blockchain, his stance on it. Remember, he's a presidential candidate. They're all kind of trying to appease crypto, except for sort of Biden that did that veto the other day, and Trump, you know, we're not quite sure what's really going on there. But let's dive into a clip of RFK talking about blockchain and the debt burden that the US currently faces. And also, I can't help but feel like there's going to be a solving or perhaps a morphing of debt in the current way the monetary system works, and blockchain is going to play a role in that. Is there a solution or a possibility that we can essentially take that debt and almost liquidate it, turn it into cash, or turn it into a settled instrument? A very interesting concept for an entirely different video. Let's dive into this clip of RFK talking about blockchain more broadly, now that we've shown you that the bulk of the bull market is still ahead of us. And then we'll dive into some fun stuff, some meme stocks and things like that.
I can't tell what is happening in their heads. I'd say it's a pretty good guess that, because I took an early position on this and have been very, very aggressive about promoting particularly Bitcoin, but also just the blockchain, that we need to bring blockchain home to this country, and we need to develop an ecosystem in this country that is compatible with and sympathetic and embracing blockchain technology. In the last couple of years, Switzerland has registered 1,200 new crypto companies with a value of about $360 billion. That should be happening here. We are driving, the greatest innovators in history right now to Switzerland, to Singapore, to other countries. And this is the chance for us to grow our economy, to become, a new industry. If we're going to get out of $34 trillion in debt, we need a new industry to blow up our economy, to make that debt proportionally lower to the size of our economy. Blockchain is that industry. We cannot afford to be driving it out of the country. We need to embrace AI here. We need to be very careful of AI. But you can't overregulate. The Biden administration and Elizabeth Warren declared war on crypto, and the banking industry has declared war on crypto. And it's good for them. It's not good for our country. It's terrible for our country. AI, we need to regulate it. We need to, but you cannot overregulate it, because you're going to drive it out of America. And
What's happening in crypto?
Yeah, and we need that. We need to keep it here.
I absolutely agree with RFK there. He also spoke about AI, which can actually be controlled to a degree with the use of a distributed ledger. There's a real crossover there. It's amazing how blockchain finds itself at the kind of convergence, or distributed ledgers find themselves at the convergence of many industries, not just finance, AI, identity, or supply chains, everything, infrastructure. But he's absolutely right. The US is going to need to very much pivot. And what that means for the cryptocurrency industry is a kind of boom in it that's being enabled by clear and decisive regulations. And of course, we know that Gensler is likely doing this for a far more nefarious reason than just to protect US consumers, because he's quite frankly done a very poor job of that if you look at all the sort of catastrophes that have happened under his watch. Yet going after companies and CZ, who I was a big fan of, that really I don't think did anything wrong, in my own personal humble opinion. Let's now talk a little bit, and just to finish off on that, is there a possibility that debt can be, and the problem can be solved with blockchain and the kind of morphing of debt into capital and investment? I don't know, do we need that double-edged system, or can we just move on to one where money just inflates without actually having the debt and the risk to banks and so on and so forth? It's a very interesting, very deep, in-depth concept that we can explore at a later date. Let's talk about meme stocks. A little bit of fun now. And this is a Roaring Kitty made an appearance. He was the guy that kicked the whole GameStop meme stock. Then there was a crossover with meme cryptos or meme coins. He obviously resurged recently. That's why GameStop did what it did. And of course, he's now revealed that he has an $181.4 million position, and he's massively up on this in GameStop. We also found out, by the way, I think he's an agent for, it's a very planned thing. Nobody's that perfect at all of this. We also found out that there was a number of hedge funds, a number of sort of big high net worth individuals that actually bought GameStop before he even came out and publicly sort of drove the stock in the direction they did. But I don't think the US government can really do much about it. Let's talk about that and relate that to the broader context of the markets. So we think there's a very bullish environment. If we go ahead and pull up GameStop, you can see today massively, massively up, and it's on the back end of Roaring Kitty and what he's doing. What I want to do, and this is a very interesting thing to do. Man, I'm just going to check I'm on the right screen here. Yeah, I am. Sorry about that. Is actually pull up Bitcoin dominance, which we're yet to see roll. I think we are potentially on the cusp of it, and overlay Dogecoin, which when it sort of starts to rally, when it sort of starts to pump, is usually a very good indicator that Bitcoin dominance is about to roll, because you get this shift, just like you saw Stan Druckenmiller move from a Bitcoin analogy here in NVIDIA, big cap down to smaller caps. I want to overlay Dogecoin, and we'll find it here, and GameStop, and use them as a barometer for the kind of environment that we're in, because they very much move hand in hand, because you get this real far out the risk curve appetite for risk when things like meme stocks and meme coins start to do well. It shows a kind of hunger for a more risky investment. So you can see actually GameStop and Dogecoin going and starting to move initially really signaled, and they went hand in hand, really signaled the end of Bitcoin dominance. And actually Dogecoin also did a similar thing just before it took off. Bitcoin dominance roll this time, or the last time, exact same thing happened. And now we have movers in GameStop and Dogecoin once again at a time when Bitcoin dominance is doing very well. And there's now this sort of more certain environment for risk. Are we going to get a similar concept? So at the start of the video, we looked at the fact that the majority of this bull market is still to come. We're getting a lot more certainty in the macro sort of situation. And on top of that, we're starting to see people like Stan Druckenmiller move from large caps down to small caps. And we're starting to see meme coins and that appetite for risk really come back. There's a very bullish picture that's been painted in regards to the cryptocurrency space. And we are on the cusp of liftoff. And what we really try and do here on the channel is help people realize that liftoff. We've spent quite a few days now over the past sort of week talking about the horrific condition and the sort of peril that the dollar is in, and the fiat systems, what we currently use as value systems, and the fact that people need to arbitrage that, they need to hedge it at this point ultimately to better their lives, because we looked at the chart of the top 1% of earners, it literally goes along with the money supply. We think you can change your life and your financial status through investing. But there's just this amazing opportunity that is in front of us. We're still looking at that right shoulder forming for total 2, taking us to $3.8 trillion. We're currently at 1.1, 1.2. It's an amazing time ahead of us, and I don't want anybody to miss out on that opportunity. Do remember, you can lose all your money with crypto. It's not a sure bet. It's just something that we think is worth highlighting as the fastest horse in what is going to be a race that sees risk generally do well. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it from me. I hope you enjoyed this content as much as I enjoyed presenting it. As always, a like and a comment is greatly appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next one.